Hi, I'm Adesina Ogidan. I'm the Sales Director at Jabama Nigeria. Over the past 12 years, I've been actively involved in solving problems for employers through finance and people solutions. So if I'm asked to describe myself in one word, I would say I'm a sales leader. Okay, we have two words there, but let's go with two words. I'm a sales leader, and I've been actively involved in providing solutions for employers or say organizations, through finance and people, right? And I specialize more on the B2B segment, being that, I actually engage a lot with organizations. So in one word, I'm a sales leader, and the touch points or the exposures I've gotten are around marketing, product, finance, and human resources. So I've combined all of those things to become a strategic sales leader in the people or HR business. And that's why I work with Jabama, and it's been so satisfying. A big no. And why? Because, early days, there was this notion about salespeople that they were, average people, and you just dump the average guys in sales, so then just go to the streets and, get the most they can get, right? And then there was no structure. So, no, sales was not, something on the table. I think what was really fundamental for me, one thing I really loved was to meet people, to engage with people, get to know them, and just have interactions and get fun out of the interaction and also some value, right? So I tested the waters in media and marketing. I got my hands dirty in it for a bit, and I got the opportunity to practice HR. From HR, at that point, my employer just thought I was best, in sales. Like I would fit better in sales, and because of that notion we had then, I mean, it was like a setback for me to say, hey, do you think I'm an average guy? Why did you just throw me into sales? But to be honest, it was actually exciting because it has always been a B2B sales thing for me. So I was meeting organizations, I was getting to understand, businesses and how they operate. And to give you more context, it was financial sales. I was a commercial banker in one of the top 5 commercial banks in Nigeria. So it exposed me to how organizations work, and it also made me, think about different options for myself, in my career. There was a point I now did some self-reflection, and what I did was, okay, I've been known to be a sales guy. What do I add to my sales, skill? That something I've already picked up. How do I combine it to make me like a unique or a specialized salesperson? And I remember the fun I had doing HR. I did a lot of interactions with HR. I think there were a lot of projects that I engaged in, and I think for me it was gratifying. So what I just did was to combine the HR exposure I already had, plus the sales skills and the experience I already gotten, and that was how I positioned myself in the market. Then, so I think that revolution happened like 7 or 8 years ago, and ever since I've been in the HR space practicing sales, right? Having understood the HR business, the pain points of HR people, how their behaviors are, and even how the organizations where they work, are facing some problems, and the best way we can offer solutions to that problem. So in summary, if you ask me if sales was my first option in terms of career, it was a no, but I picked it up, over the course of my career, and it's been exciting since then. The typical career person in Nigeria, you will face tons of challenges. So if you think about the reality of a salesperson, early in his career, first of all, many salespeople did not plan to find themselves in that space. So that is number one challenge. You're in a place where you're not even sure you can excel there. Then, when you even now start finding your feet, right, and you start getting comfortable, because our market is very dynamic, something that you are comfortable selling today where you think the customer is excited, that thing could turn to a bad taste for the customer tomorrow. So the environment we find ourselves, which is very dynamic, right, throws a lot of challenges at a salesperson. How have I been able to navigate those challenges over the years? I think for me, going back to my notion about, the salesperson, that he's an average person and he's thrown into the field to just figure out things by himself. And that notion was right, because at that time, a lot of organizations were not structured in their sales. And even till now, in this our present world, especially in this part of the world, where organizations are not really structured in their sales approach, and the guy that is, making sales is probably the guy that has connection, and that month is his lucky day, right? So, in terms of, how I was able to navigate it, I did some self-assessment, and I realized that no, the sales guy actually is the most important, person in an organization, or the sales department is the most important, role or department in an organization. And because there's a lot, expected of you, you need to understand how the organization operates. You need to understand the model of the organization. You understand the interdependencies, that's the other departments that come together to make sure the organization is standing, right? Because definitely finance will support sales, product will support sales, marketing will support sales, customer service will support sales. So I think for me at that point, so I told you I identified an area that I was very competent in, which is HR. And my early days in HR sales, I was lucky to be in organizations where those units are sort of active and they actually know what they were doing. So what it was for me was I had to get myself, inside, their units, right? How they work and all of that. So now going back to the field, right? I was very confident to sell to a customer. And if the customer says no, I'll take it as a feedback, right? And go back to my colleagues or the stakeholders and let them know why it is difficult to make this sale. Is it a channel problem, right? Is it a delivery problem, right? Is it the product positioning that is not, sitting well, with the market or with the customers? So I think for me overall, right, I just realized that first, the sales team or the salesperson is a very important person in that organization, right? And the organization relies on the feedbacks, of that person. So I think that was it for me, how I've been able to overcome challenges, and it has actually been, instrumental in my career growth in sales. So let me go back to that statement about the early realities of a salesperson, where you're thrown into a department and it was not something you planned for. You went to a university to get a degree, you probably did biochemistry, and you thought you were going to be Albert Einstein, the second. Then you are thrown into sales to be selling to people that do not even want to speak with you, right? So at that point, the approach a typical salesperson would use is, and the way you understand how to, survive is connection, right? So, yes, connection is good, what we call relationship, right? It is good. But if you now rely on connection/relationship to grow your sales career, and get to a point where, because that's your lucky season, connections are just coming in and you are making sales, right? You would be confident to say, oh, I want to produce 2 sales in the next 10 years. In fact, I'm a salesman. Then it could be that those connections you have, right, wherever you find yourself, what you are pushing, those connections, you don't want it. You don't want to buy it, right? But because you've already heavily invested your energy into just relationship and connection, you find yourself stranded, either early days or it's to catch up with you, later. And when you don't now have, when your connections are not now buying, you now start walking up to, just any random person you meet. And it gets to a point where, yes, you can sort of exhibit some confidence in what you are saying, and the person says no. You find yourself start begging the person, please buy. please buy, I have targets to meet, right? Because you've not early stage, structured, your sales approach. And I also blame employers, especially in our part of the world, where they just feel like, oh, they have a product and I need guys to come sell it for me, right? So, so those are employer behaviors, and those guys in the early stage of careers are the victims. And the ones that are lucky with connections, they sell, and when the connections dry up or the product does not fit the connections, they don't sell. So that's the mistake a lot of salespeople make. And unfortunately, even guys that have advanced themselves in the sales field, they still rely a lot on connection. But I would say sales is, overall a very wide, field, right? And in fact, you would even find different roles you can do in sales. For instance, in Jobberman, where I work, we have a sales operations team, right? We have telesales people, and they all understand how the organization's units and the departments support their role. So they don't rely on relationship or connection. They rely on, customer feedbacks. They rely on data. They rely on, a process, that is repeatable. That where the young person that comes in is sort of onboarded and taken through the sales process and given the right tools to, run his sales. And you find this guy, picking up and excelling in his sales career. So I think, in summary, the mistake salespeople make, and I would also blame our employers, organizations, is their approach to sales. Oh, I need somebody that knows individuals. In fact, in interviews, they ask you, okay, give me a list of 10 people that you know. And for you, 10 people already, yes. You feel like, oh, I've killed this interview. And they're like, okay, nice, let's employ this guy. And when they are done, getting your connections and you are not selling properly, the next month, your target is, your achieved is poor. They start looking for you to get rid of you. So that's reliance on connection and relationship is too heavy in our part of the world. And that's one mistake, salespeople make in their career at the early stage. I like this part because I'll talk about the ugly and the good. In fact, the ugliest. And that was early stage in my career. As I said, connection, and sometimes connection could also be connected to luck, right? I had this client that, I told you the first, exposure to sales was banking, commercial banking. And I don't know if some of you can relate with, how it's done in banking. I know some of these banks have improved in their sales approach, but those days, there was so much, aggression. And even if you want to be structured or put in the process, there's some targets that you just hear today. All you just need to do is to go and beg. Go and sit down with the client and be smiling with the client. So that was one practice I adopted, then. And there was this particular client that was so nice to me. He was just giving me anything I asked for, right? There was no structure to solving his problems, from my side. The guy was just, buying, making deposits, heavy deposits. And one day I sat down in the client's office. There was nothing to talk about, just, smiling with the guy. And the guy looked at me and he said, so there's a way you express something in Yoruba that is deeper than English. But I'll say it in English, right? The guy said, You've become a bed bug. And the Yoruba, so you can imagine, just try and interpret that in Yoruba. Just put a subtitle. So it's very deep. So I was asked to say it in Yoruba. So the guy said, Boboyi, what is already Idun? And because, at that time, Yoruba was not so great, I was just smiling, sir, what's Idun? I can't look at everybody. It was like an open place. This guy's a Yoruba boy and doesn't know what they call it. You're a bed bug, you're biting my leg. Then I was when I realized that, this guy had seen me as a nuisance. And I think at that point, it just flared up. Like, he just, picked up, from there. And he told me to my face that I was a nuisance, that why would I be harassing him, to buy something or to make deposits in the bank, He said all sorts of things to me. It was very painful at that moment. But on my way back to my office, it was a 40 minutes journey. I sat back and I reflected. I was like, sales is actually value exchange, right? If the guy sees value in what you're offering to the table, you'll be happy and excited to buy from you, right? And you should always make sure that you are bringing, value to the person. So that was one memorable moment for me, and I always joke about it. I was so happy you asked me this question because it's something I had to share publicly. Then let me talk about the good. The good, I've had many episodes of the good, right? Thankfully, and I think what is most exciting for me. So the good is when you listen to a customer, right, and you figure out a problem that this customer has that even your employer or your organization has not even seen it. Even the industry is not even seeing it. And you look at the features of your organization. So just for instance, in Jobberman, employers in Jobberman have so many problems, right? But Jobberman has positioned itself to solve a recruitment problem. However, recruitment challenges are diverse. And Jobberman has been very mature to be able to always introduce features that speak to different pain points of different customer segments. And you can never figure out everything in a day. So when you as a salesperson, you put yourself as a listener. Many times you find something that even your employer or the industry has not thought about. And you think about the features your employer already has, and you look at how you can be creative in a way to structure, the solution to meet that client's problem. And you do that and it solves the client's problem. The client is happy. And you realize that there's a community of customers that have this similar problem. So I think what's most exciting for me in sales is when you can unlock, a solution to an existing problem, and you just see growth trajectory there. And sales guys that have been lucky to be in that position always find out that their careers are like super speed in terms of career growth. I think first of all, you need to identify an industry where you want to practice your sales based on your skill sets. Identify that industry. You need to create a niche for yourself, because especially in this part of the market, what works is really well is niche, right? Identify. So like what I did, midpoint in my career was I realized that I love HR. I enjoy that practice, right? But I've actually been exposed to sales. Is the excitement, the thrill and thrill of it, of making money, making a sale, meeting your targets. It was something I was already used to, and I was not sure if I wanted to walk away from that, right? But what I did was to now find a field where I can actually have very, very good conversations with the practitioners, no matter how advanced you are, right? And they will be confident to even, share some information with me. So I think, first of all, identify a field, where you have mastery of. And because for every field, for every industry, there's a need. And there are companies or vendors that meet those needs. So plant yourself as a salesperson in one of those places. And that's one thing that you can do, first. Now, another thing you need to check is you need to identify if you are a hunter or a closer, right? So a hunter is somebody that knows how to, you cast your net, right? And you know how to capture, a group of customers. You commence an engagement or a preliminary conversation, right? But sometimes there could be complexities around, closing a sale there. So there's another skill set, and that's the, closer. The closer is the guy that can actually profile solutions to what you're seeing and can manage the internal stakeholders in the organization to get the solution delivered to the customer. So you need to identify at that early stage, you need to identify, if where you sit, either as a hunter or a closer. Then the next thing is to make sure you interact with all customers possible that fall into your target markets, right? And in doing that, there's one thing you need to prepare your mind for. Be ready to get plenty and numerous no's. In fact, just give yourself a rate, right? 90% of your conversations will be a no. However, the no should always be seen as an opportunity, right? Then you need to now identify the supporting roles, right, that support your sales. You know, as I said, being a salesperson, you need to even understand the organization. You need to understand the business model, right? Now, when you've been able to capture all of that, right, and this thing, it doesn't happen in a day, right? Because as I said, you know, the natural instinct is for you to use connections to even survive at early stage, right? But over time, you need to be mindful of how you can, you know, sustainably, you know, survive in the sales environment. And those are ways you can structure, you know, your goals, right? They are in different milestones for you to be able to, you know, master the art of selling. Because then again, you also need to understand that sales is actually a process. It's actually a process. So you need to also understand the process that works for the industry that you are playing in, right? If it's a B2B industry, so I mean, I'm biased, you know, towards B2B industry. So that's business to business, where you engage organizations, because there are so many interesting dynamics that you find there, right? Where you have a user, you have a decision maker, and you have a payer, right? So I think overall, right, when you're looking at goals, those are, maybe we might not call them goals, but to-dos, you know, to-dos, things that you need to do and to master to make sure that you can survive as a salesperson in any environment that you find yourself. So, I mean, as far as I've checked rather, in this part of the world and even in other markets, I know that we do not really have like a degree, you know, that especially focused on sales. You don't see somebody saying BSc sales, right? So, yes, you have a lot of people from diverse degrees practicing sales. You know, in fact, I've met a medical doctor that is practicing sales, right? So, you can be tempted to think that sales is for everybody, but yes, there are some school of thoughts, you know, for that. There's a school of thought that supports that, but there's something that is, you know, super important in being identified as a salesperson, and those things are, if I want to define it or classify it, I'll say soft skills. And in order of importance, what are the soft skills that we should be looking at? You need to be able to communicate. And when I say communication, in fact, 80% of the communication should be listening. Be able to listen. Listen to your customers. Listen to your stakeholders in the, you know, internally, right? Listen and listen and listen and listen, right? When you listen and capture as many information you can get, be analytical. Analyze everything you've listened to. So another soft skill is analytical skills, right? Although analytical skills means you now maybe use tools to present your analysis, right? So we also need to be mindful that there are some tools that also enhance these things. But fundamentally, you know, as a person, you need to be very analytical. Then now your delivery of your message, you know, delivery of your feedback, right? It has to be fine. You know, it has to be simple. You know, the customers need to understand where you're coming from in terms of how you want to deliver the solution, how you want the product you're pushing, how the product you're pushing is going to solve their problem. So those are, you know, so I've said communication, but, you know, like communication is like a parent's, you know, skill. Under communication, there's listening, there's, speaking, right? But analytical skills is another thing. But I also sort of put analytical skills in the middle because you have to listen, analyze what you've heard, and speak out, right? But I also treat analytical skills as a standalone. You have to be analytical because you are selling. When you are selling a product, you are selling a value, and that value is speaking to, or value position. That value position is speaking to pain points of the customer, right? You need to be able to analyze how that value will solve the customer's problem. So analytical skills is another thing that is super important. Another thing that is also important is stakeholder management skills, right? Because you are talking to different stakeholders. The guy that gave you the targets in the organization, you're talking to that guy. And you're giving him feedback on how you cannot achieve that target or the challenges you face in achieving that target. You're talking to the other supporting units, to tell them how they need to, come together, maybe improve on something to enable you to meet your targets. You're talking to customers, and telling them how your units, colleagues, actually put some things together to enhance their experience and to make sure they get, satisfaction in what they're buying, right? So, stakeholder management skills, super important. Negotiation skills is also another soft skill that needs to be applied because there's always an offer and there's always a counter offer and there are always compromises that need to be made, right? So you need to be able to master the art of negotiation. So, I've not mentioned 20% of the skills, but I think top skills that you need to have, right, is those ones. But one more thing. You have to, I think we like call it endurance, right, or agility. So I would say agility, right? You need to be very agile. You need to be able to quickly respond to what people are saying. You need to respond, Yeah, so it could also be managing, what's the word to use? Managing objections, right? You need to be able to think on your feet to manage objections, objection handling. That is one thing that you also require. So if you allow me to use 1 hour to talk about the skills required in sales, it's a lot. And what does that tell you? It means that notion that sales is for the average person is actually very wrong, right? Sales is actually for, the superheroes. You have to be a superhero because you have to combine a lot of skills and manage a lot of stakeholders. And you need to understand that field properly to be able to have, authoritative, or decent conversations and be authoritative in your assertions. First approach is you have to be very strategic, right? And what does that mean? In a nutshell, you can actually look at as I said, I'm biased to B2B sales, and B2B sales means you already sort of have a customer, portfolio, right? You need to look at your portfolio. You need to ensure that your portfolio is optimally, utilized, right? And that means that you have identified all the customers in your portfolio. Because if you think about revenue or targets or revenue targets, it means they require you to get customers to pay you at a premium, right? Well, to help you get your target quickly. Pay you at a premium, and you need multiple customers. So I think for a start, you need to even be able to segment your customer portfolio, right? Who are my very active top paying clients, right? Who are these clients that are not active, but maybe they're just buying, a few units, right? Or buying the lowest priced units. And if I see a certain behavior in that customer segment, right, I need to be able to look at how I can develop that customer or that customer segment from paying little amount to upgrading the customer to pay a higher premium. So that is one thing. You have to be very strategic about your portfolio, right? That's when you you'll be able to utilize your different stakeholders. You need to utilize marketing, you need to utilize product, you need to utilize even operations, right? Where product can help you with crafting like a user persona, right? And you understand the approach to talking to these users, right? You need to get marketing to also help you in actually, maybe it is now nurturing that needs to happen, in nurturing these people. So I think overall I've talked about like strategic, right? That's one thing you need to do. You have to be very strategic in how you can manage your portfolio to meet your targets. We can also rule out the fact that you also have to be strategic in ensuring you acquire new customers, right? As I said, so why I'm using this sophisticated, scenarios is because at Jobberman, it is something that we practice, where salespeople, actively engage, the different units that support, the sales process. In product, marketing, even business intelligence, where we, use a lot of data, to drive our sales, right? So now, you've done your portfolio segmentation, right? Secondly, the second tip is to wear the hat of a call center person. What does that mean? Engage with your customers. Marketing has helped you to nurture them, right? Product has, helped you craft like a general user persona, like just describe the different segments of your customers. What do you need to do? You have to wear the hat of a call center person. So when I say call center person, what I'm just trying to say is engagement, 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 engagement. And do not lose one day. Do not lose one day your engagement drive. Because if you lose one day, you lose, opportunities. Why am I saying do not lose one day? Because you lose opportunities. Because for every day that you talk to your volume, so you have to give yourself like a volume, like a customer reach volume target. Like how many customers do you want to reach in a day? Right? Give yourself that target and be consistent, daily in meeting those targets. Because the more customers you talk to, right, the higher probability of a conversion. If you remember one point I made where I said, be ready to hear numerous no's. In fact, give yourself a target of say, you will get 90% no's from your conversation. So what does that mean? You have to constantly be engaging your customers and using the strategic approach that you've applied in the first tip, right? After that, as I said, you get a lot of no's, right? Always gather the feedbacks. Gather the feedbacks. Gather the feedbacks, right? And make the feedback, very constructive that you'll be able to share with all the stakeholders. Now, the third thing I would say is put all your conversations in a funnel. Because we're talking about how you meet your revenue targets, right? Put all your conversations in a funnel. And for each stage of the customer conversation, because there are different stages, that the customer has to pass through before the customer makes payments, right? Put, all the customers in each of their stages in that funnel. That funnel helps you to forecast where, the first month you did this great work, right? And you keep on consistently, working with that same pattern, right? With that pattern, you can actually determine, how much you will make the next month, the subsequent months. You can determine how much you make for the next 4 months, right? And when you determine that, if you see a shortfall in 1 month, you can tell yourself, my portfolio is not enough to get me to this number. I need to channel my energy, for a period to customer acquisition. So in summary, the top 3 tips, for meeting ambitious sales targets: be strategic, work with all the stakeholders involved in making a sale happen. 2, active engagement. Active engagement. Do not lose a day, because a day you lose opportunities you've lost, right? Then the third thing is all your engagements, all your conversations, put them in a funnel, right? And sort of chart the course on how the customers will flow through the funnel and which one drops, at the payment points where, yes, the sale has happened, right? And you can actually like monitor that funnel, and you can, determine a forecast, how much you probably make, at a given period. Thank you. Yes, I know that in our country or in our market, somehow the sales process is not really like that. That's not your reality in your organization, and that's giving you an illusion about sales, or a notion about sales rather. But I'll tell you that sales is a highly, highly, highly rewarding role. If you look at organizations that practice sales, the right way, which is one of the things that we do in Jobberman, right? We have our sales guys really, really excited. They are confident to always wake up in the morning to, solve a customer problem. But I'll tell you, again, it's a highly rewarding role. And if you check, the median salary of sales in developed countries, right, and compare it with those other roles that you fancy, you will see that sales is something, that you should actually consider if you think you have the right skill set and you have the agility. Hi, my name is Adesina Ogidan, and this is Jobberman.